Hello everybody. So we are going to discuss about business to business marketing. Now if you look into the history, it emerged from the term known as industrial marketing. Why industrial marketing? Because I again, relate to industrial revolution. So during the time of the industrial revolution, industries, that is new industries, were coming up, whether it is of car manufacturing company, whether it is into the chemicals, whether it is into steel manufacturing companies or any kind of a component manufacturing companies. All these companies together, they played a very important role in the economy. They played a role in terms of generating employment, and that's where at that time the government promoted industrial revolution. That was the need of the hour. But as the disposable income increased, then the services developed over a period of time. And if you look into the present economy, profile of the developed countries, we find the majority is coming from, or the contribution is coming from the service industries or services. So now it was earlier industrial marketing, and now the focus now has shifted to organization marketing, and this is also referred as a B2b marketing, right? So what are the different entities under B2b marketing? So there are three major types of the entities. The first is the commercial organizations. They are looking for a kind of a profit arrangements. And which are these kind of organizations? So this can be the original equipment manufacturers, OEMs, right? It can be distributors, it can be retailers, it can be the users, it can be the manufacturing organization, it can be into any infrastructure companies or construction companies or any service organization which has a commercial setup, right? So that is where we consider a commercial organization. Second type is consisting of institutions. So what are these institutions? So institutions can include educational institutions, it can include healthcare institutions, it can include both, that is profit as well as non-profit institutions. There can be charitable institutions, which comes under non-for-profit institutions. There can be religious institutions. So because the buying is not gone by one individual, but then it's interplay of different people who contribute in terms of the buying. And the third type of organization is about the government organizations. So government organizations, there are different types of government organizations. So we have local bodies, right? So municipalities or Nagar Panchayat, those are considered as local bodies. There are state level organizations, and then there is a central organizations or central government, right? Different departments of central government, right? So these are the three major types of entities under B2B marketing. So as against B2C marketing, that is as against the consumer marketing, the focus is on organization. So anything you deal with the organization, that become a part of business to business marketing. Now you will also find an element of B2B into a B2C business. So if there is a company like HUL, Hindustan Unilever, so they are purchase organization. So anything that you sell it to the HUL, right? So HUL will be buying certain chemicals, for producing detergents, for producing soaps, right? So that is their so here HUL can be considered as a buyer organization, and the seller organization can include the all suppliers which supply to HUL. And then how then it operates? Then HUL has a distributor. So from HUL to the distributor, again it is B2B. From distributors to retailers, because retailers, although they are individuals, but they operate as a business, right? So they operate as a proprietorship, organization. So it's a retailer is a organization, even is a small mom and pop store, it can be a kind of a nature is about the organization, right? So that comes under, and from a retailer to a consumer, right? So there are crores of consumers in India that will constitute as B2C marketing. So even in a B2C company, which is predominantly company like HUL, Hindustan Unilever, there is a element of B2B. So B2B is very important. Now you should also look into what are the profile, what exactly the managers, into the B2C organizations do. So they also play a very important role. They need to have an expertise, how to deal with the distributor, how to deal with the retailer. So they need to have a B2B expertise even in a B2C organization to be successful, right? Now let's look into some valuable companies into the B2B domain. So one company which comes into my mind is General Electric. Have you heard about General Electric? Yes, I'm sure. So I am taking you back to the year 1878. So that was the time when General Electric started, it commenced its operation. And who is the person behind General Electric? Thomas Alva Edison. Thomas Alva Edison, you can relate with inventor of electric bulb. Okay, so maybe today night I am, having a video recording. That is thanks to, Thomas Alva Edison. But GE as a company was, progress. It expanded its operation. It expanded its products. So the products, the starting product can be considered as electric bulb, but then over a period of time, General Electric, serves different, sectors. It can include the manufacturing sector, it can include the healthcare sector, it can include the infrastructure sector, it can include the energy sector. Within the energy, you have the broad classification as thermal energy, oil, then gas, so that is also maybe into the chemicals, right? So these are the different domains in which GE, supplies its products and services. And in terms of the services, at one point of time, GE also had a presence through financial services. So financial services also kind of a part of General Electric. Now, if you look into the history of, now we move a little further, from 1878, we find that there are many CEOs, who took charge of General Electric. But one of the very prominent CEO of General Electric is Jack Welch. So Jack Welch, he is the 8th, CEO, Chief Executive Officer at General Electric, and he played a very important role. He played a role in terms of raising the market valuation of the company. That is, in the year 1981, the market valuation, that is the market capitalization of General Electric was just $12 billion. It's not just $12 billion, but then by the year 2001, he raised it to $280 billion. So it's a massive value creation, and that is his contribution. So over a period of time, General Electric was also into the engines, which are provided, for aircrafts. So it was supplying the engines for the aircrafts, but then it found, while discussing with the customers that, and General Electric reflected, the management of General Electric reflected, why don't we add some more value, into for our customers? And then they come out, with a concept of power for the hour. That means that since General Electric had an expertise in terms of manufacturing of engines of aircraft, so they had an know-how, of these engines. And what do the customer wants? Customer wants the engine fully operational, because if there are problems, then aircrafts will be grounded, and if the aircrafts will be grounded, then the airline companies will be spending on the fixed cost, will be spending other type of cost, in terms of the maintenance, in terms of the repair of these aircrafts. So General Electric, since it had developed expertise, then it said that okay, we'll take care of your maintenance, and that's where General Electric, signed the customer service agreement, because customers found it very valuable, because customers were interested, like airline companies were interested in having the aircrafts, into the air rather than grounded. And that's where it also came out with the concept of power for the hour. That means it charged on the hourly basis for making these engines operational, up and running. That is the contribution. And if you look into the marketing aspect, or if we look into the branding aspect at General Electric, we find that there is the tagline of General Electric, that we bring good things to life. And then over a period of time, it got changed to imagination at work, because General Electric was focusing into innovations, whether it is into the healthcare, maybe having a kind of affordable healthcare equipment, right? So that's a kind of a imagination at work that really served a kind of a tagline for General Electric. And then over a period of time, it also came out with a tagline that is eco-imagination, because there were growing concerns regarding the pollution, and people were looking for safer options in terms of the renewable energy, in terms of the the solar energy, in terms of the wind energy. So all kind of, or water purification, effluent treatment, right? So all these kind of the safer options that people were looking at, and General Electric felt that we can address these problems, and they felt that here is a avenue for them where they can make a good impact in the society. And that also creates kind of a positive sentiments for a company in the years to come. So that was a kind of a change which was initiated. And presently, if you look into the General Electric, they are into the analytics, they are into the digital, so digital they are considering as one of the very great potential for growth for General Electric, right? So this is the story of General Electric. Now let's come to the business to business marketing, and what are the stages of buying in business to business marketing. So there is a difference as compared to the B2C marketing. There are certain commonalities. So the first step is problem recognition. So somebody has to, that is the organization has to recognize the problem, right? The problem can be in terms of improvement in the revenue, so that is the kind of a solution that the organization may be looking for, reducing the cost, improving the productivity, right? So these are some of the areas that will be recognized by the organization. Now once that is recognized, then we'll move to the next step, and the next step is about the need identification and product specification or the service specification. So you now go into the detailing exactly what kind of the product, what is the nomenclature, or what is the composition of the product that you look for. Then you do a kind of a preliminary supplier search, like whether any supplier who is there and what are their capabilities, what are their competencies. So that is what you look into. And then there is a supplier solicitation, or this you can also link with request for proposals, RFP. So I'm sure people who are working in IT organizations would be conversant with this term, that is request for proposal. The next stage is the supplier selection. So there can be a criteria in terms of a technical bidding followed by the financial bidding. It all depends on the organization, what criteria that they want to set maybe they also would be governed by certain policies which will be enforced, and they have to follow, those policies. And maybe if it is, for example, government organizations, so if the government lays the regulations or comes out with a law, in terms of the procurement in a specific form, then all government organizations need to follow it, right? So that is where, the supplier will be selected on the parameters which are set based on the policy. Now once the supplier is selected, then we'll have a order specification, order routine specification. So how the order will be executed, right? So how different quantities of which will be offered, and once that is done, so order is executed, then what you would be looking into is the performance. So how is the performance, right? So we will undertake a performance review. Okay, so whether whatever the criteria that you have set for the product, whether it has been fulfilled or not, so that is done through a performance review. So for these are the steps in a buying process. So these are known as the stages in buying process or steps for buying. It is one and the same, right? There are different buying situations. So there are basically three major type of buying situations. The first is the straight rebuy. So for a kind of a product of a routine nature, the straight rebuy is applicable, right? And the second is modified rebuy. Modified rebuy is like you are undertaking some modifications in terms of the technical specifications or in terms of the quantities, or there are other kind of the modifications, service modifications that may be undertaken. That is the modified rebuy. And the third task is about the new task. So altogether there is no experience, it's a kind of a project which is there. So this is new task. So there are three major types of the buying situation, that is straight rebuy, modified rebuy, and new task. I'm sure you would find business to business marketing a very interesting dimension of marketing, and many of the jobs are into this area.